We spin this to see how we're going to contextualize the talk for the day. And today we're finishing up with tradition 5, which talks about our primary purpose is to carry the message. And so let's see how that's going to get contextualized. How do we find ourselves in others? Alrighty. How do we find ourselves in others? The simplest answer to that is look and listen. Same way you find your reflection in a mirror is the same way we find ourselves in others. Right? There's one consciousness. And so that consciousness is our consciousness. We are individualized versions of that consciousness, but never separate. So when I'm experiencing Amen, I'm experiencing the same consciousness that I am. Right? That's how we find ourselves in others. Look and listen. How we allow ourselves to be aware of that, that's a whole different conversation, because that requires that I stop focusing on separation. It's really quite simple. The moment I accept, really accept oneness, there stops being an other. See, the whole concept of other is based in separation. Everything else is just another version of creation. And letting go of other means I even let go of the concept of me. Because as long as I have a concept of me, I have a concept of you. And now we're back to other. Okay. It's the scariest thing I think our little amygdala ever wrestles with, is the idea that this human organism that I have spent 65 years investing in the idea of me isn't actually real. It's real in terms of my flesh, but it's not spiritually real. There's no separate me. I am just, if you have a pile of snowflakes, right, they're all snowflakes, and when you're looking at them with your human eye, they all look the same. And every one of them is different. But they all came from the same moisture. They all came from the same atmosphere. They all came from the same substance. We are no different. The difference is the snowflakes don't have a brain that lies to them. So never once have I walked out into the snow and witnessed an argument between two snowflakes about whose territory they were laying in. Never once. Never once have I experienced any snowflake pick up another snowflake and throw it and say, this is my boundary. Never. Because they're not blessed with a brain. I know we say we're the highest on the food chain. I am no longer convinced that's accurate. I think oftentimes we are the most impaired on the food chain because of our ability to think and separate. I really do. So this morning, our overarching topic, well, first of all, our annual theme this year is First Thing First, living by spiritual principle, one step at a time. And today we're finishing up with the 5th tradition, and we reframed it last week to each center has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the person who still seeks. Today, we get to explore what exactly is our message. Because if our primary purpose is to carry a message, perhaps we might want to get clear about what that message is. In NA, it's easy. No addict seeking recovery need die. Pretty clear message. AA, very similar. Any alcoholic can stop drinking and recovery is then possible. What is our message? Because you get 10 metaphysicians in the same room, good luck getting clarity on what the message is. Here's a room full of independent, science of mind metaphysicians who can't even agree on a sentence. I was doing some studying for a blog that I'm starting, and I ran across a very interesting thing that gave me pause. In the book, The Essential Ernest Holmes, which is a collection of Ernest Holmes' writings, he says we don't ever state what we believe. And I went, excuse me? We have a declaration of principles that says we believe. Ba-ba-da-boom, ba-ba-da-boom, ba-ba-da-boom. It was originally written by Ernest Holmes as what I believe. And it was adopted by the organization as what we believe. And what Ernest goes on to talk about in this section about we never state what we believe, he caveats that with, unless we have absolute agreement of the people that the we refers to. Now, I've been doing this for a few 24 hours in Centers for Spiritual Living that used to be Church of Religious Science. I have not found, actually, what I have found is that we collectively don't necessarily believe everything what we believe says we believe. And then I find this passage from Ernest Holmes saying, don't ever do that. And what I recognize is that we're an organization of human beings that is constantly shifting and growing and changing. And I'm very much aware at the human level, my amygdala's back here going, you know this is being videotaped and other people are going to watch you say this, right? Yeah. And it doesn't make it less accurate. Okay? And it's not a condemnation. It's an observation. It's simply an observation. I don't know if having a declaration of principles that every sentence starts with we believe is right or not. I don't know. What I do know is that we have it. And the founder of this movement says, don't do that unless everybody actually agrees. Now, do I think we need to change it? I don't know. I don't know. But what I'm aware of is there is no one size fits all. That's the ultimate thing that it brought me to. It's like, okay, because I can read what Ernest Holmes wrote in the original What I Believe, and I can get next to all of it. That doesn't mean you do. You know, there's lots of things I believe today that I did not believe 5 years ago. I can believe something right now that by the time I get home this afternoon, I won't necessarily believe that. And perhaps that's the invitation. I'm not sure how to put it in a message necessarily, in a succinct, this is our primary purpose message. But perhaps that's the invitation, to question everything. Everything.
Yes.
There's a line, and it's no secret that a lot of my spiritual awakening actually has come through Narcotics Anonymous. If you read the Narcotics Anonymous literature, if I went through and took out every reference to drugs and alcohol and Narcotics Anonymous, you would not know you're not reading a Science of Mind book. It's amazing. And one of the lines in the basic text says, everything I know is subject to revision, especially what I know about the truth. So I've been questioning this stuff for 42 years. Because the problem with a message that says, this is the truth, is how are we defining truth?
Yes.
Right? And if we are all infinite intelligence in form, if we are all truth in form, which one of us got the direct download of what was absolutely true? See, that requires separation again. If it's actually true, wouldn't we all know it? Doesn't mean we're all aware of it. See, there is a lot of landscape between knowing at the spiritual level and being aware of what we innately know. Right? But we tend to equate knowing with being aware. They're not the same. They're not the same. In this book that I'm writing, one of the things that I'm offering people is a practice of answering all those questions that we just blow off. Right? Because I'm convinced that that's how what we know gets our attention so that it can inform our human head what our essence knows. Right? You have those moments where you're doing something and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you're like, what was I thinking? Answer the question. What's going on here? Answer the question. That is the infinite you guiding you to an answer. The problem is we as human beings have been conditioned to seek some authority outside of ourselves for the answers. Nobody has your answers. Nobody. Because they're your questions. And newsflash, those of you who find yourselves to be brilliantly full of information for other people, you don't. You don't know what somebody else's answer is. That's human arrogance. And it's all about puffing yourself up in your sense of importance. Who are you if you don't have somebody else's answers? There's a question to play with. What's your value if nobody sees you? If nobody validates you from the outside, what's your value? Do you know? Because you have value. But every time we reinforce that we have to have external validation to know our value, what we're actually reinforcing is we don't have value. Because my value is now based in something outside of me, which means it's not mine. It's yours. And I manipulate you to give it to me. And we reinforce the lie. If there's only one substance, I propose that everything created out of that substance has the same value as the substance. How could it be any other way? It's like saying you can create something out of water that doesn't have wetness. Good luck with that. Our value isn't a variable. That's a truth. It is an unchangeable, intrinsic, inseparable truth. That's where, when we talk about whole, complete, and perfect, that's what we're talking about, is your value, your essence, the foundation of you. We're not talking about your thoughts and your behaviors. None of us is whole, perfect, and complete from the neck up. That's the factory of run amok. Right? Because we start believing the gerbils in there know where they're running, and then, oh, I'll follow you. Right off a cliff. Right? I don't actually know how humanity got related to sheep in the Bible, but if you study the behavior of sheep, it's not hard to figure out the accuracy of it. Right? Sheep are followers to their own demise. If the lead sheep, and this is really how it works in a herd of sheep, I don't know how the lead sheep gets designated, I don't know what their voting process is, but I know that one gets established. And if that lead sheep gets their head stuck in a fence, that they could actually back up and walk around, the whole herd will stand there and starve to death if the lead sheep doesn't free itself. If the lead sheep walks off a cliff, the whole herd walks right off the cliff. Sound like humanity to you? I ain't judging, I'm just saying, if it walks like a sheep, bears like a sheep, behaves like a sheep, might kind of sort of get compared to a sheep. Which, do you want to be that? Hello, bunny rabbit. Hopping around out there. Talk about wildlife, it shows up. That was pretty trippy. Who do you want to be? Right? And I invite you to let go of being the lead sheep or part of the herd. Because if we would figure this out in our society, everything would change like that. We talk about a world that works for all. We would manifest that instantaneously the moment a true 51% of humanity recognized their intrinsic value. Because then we wouldn't have followers and we wouldn't need leaders, and this whole system of control would just delightfully collapse. And it wouldn't matter. See, but even the thought of it collapsing, most of us just went, oh crap, then what? And that is where we get to explore, what is our real message? Then what? Right? What are we really offering people? We talk about change your thinking, change your life. Then what? Right? Let go of separation. Then what? As human beings, we are conditioned to be terrified of the unknown. Yeah. And the unknown, then what? I don't know. And if we're being really honest with ourselves, until we get to, I don't know, we still have reservations about letting go of this stuff that keeps us stuck. Ernest Holmes talks extensively, he doesn't title it this way, but he could have, 101 plus ways we argue for our limitations. Right? Because we do. I mean, how many times in your spiritual process you have these aha moments, and within a nanosecond, yeah, but pops in. Right? And perhaps if we would deal with our spiritual buts, we'd get some clarity. And my favorite is the, yeah, but you don't understand. Because now we have made our argument for our limitation excruciatingly exceptional. My limitations are special. I'm the only one limited like this. What a crock of hooey. Because guess what? It's just like those phrases you read on social media. They have made me laugh for years. Thank you, everyone who has used those. Only in New Jersey. Only in California. Only in Maryland. And if you go back and copy them, everybody's saying the same thing. Can only happen here. But what can only happen in New Jersey only happened in California, only happened in Florida, only happened in Maryland. But you see how we want to be special? Newsflash, you are. You are. This is how special you are. And I'm going to keep saying it until you get it. You are a one of a kind. Intentional. On purpose. Divine idea. In the mind of creation. In consciousness itself. To experience itself as you. That's who you are. How much more exceptional do you want to be? Life itself animated itself as you so it could experience life as you. It empowered you with absolute authority to use it however you see fit. How much more exceptional could you possibly be? And here's the thing. How do we find ourselves in others? Know that about yourself. Because when you do, you will instantly know the same thing is true about everybody else. Because it's not a situation where you are a divine idea in the mind of God, but I don't know. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. Frequently, when you tell me how amazing I am, and I do appreciate hearing it, but what I will say to you is, how do you like your mirror? I do that for two reasons. One, to remind you that everything you see in me is you. And the other is to keep my human little amygdala humble. Because I know who I am. It does not take just a few drops of human ego and I'm and that is a dead end. I was sharing with somebody that I do some coaching with. When we go down that rabbit hole of self-importance, that's like going through hell with the burners on high. because it's such a degree of separation. And what happens is we get there and it feels really good until we realize it's fleeting. And then we have to start protecting it. And then we're terrified of losing it because we know we already have lost it, or we wouldn't be trying to protect it. And it's just hell. When if we just surrender to our value, to the amazingness that we are, heaven. So I'm going to depend on all of us to share our thoughts until we come up with a concise statement. What is our message? What is our message that we collectively, that will represent this community as the primary purpose we exist? It's easy for Christian churches that are evangelical, whose primary purpose is to win souls for Christ. That's easy. Nice, concise. That's their primary purpose. It's not one I align with, but it's theirs. Right? What is ours? So I invite you to sit with that. Our worksheet today, interestingly enough, has the we believe statements for you to explore. Do you believe it? And please, please, please give yourself permission to argue with them if you don't. Right? If you've ever taken a class with me or a discussion group with me, the first rule is you get to argue with this stuff. Right? This is not, never, ever. Two things that you need to know. I am not here to teach you what to think. I'm here to help you learn how to think. The other thing, if I am the greatest authority you have, the situation is already way worse than you thought. You can build the pedestal, but you can't make me get on it. Because I have been there, and it hurts when I'm like not paying attention and go and step right off the edge. Bam! No. You are the authority on you. And you have a direct line to consciousness because you are consciousness in form. You just need some help. We all do. We need some help sometimes how to actually listen, how to hear, how to own it, and how to give everybody else the same permission. Let's take this into prayer. One substance. One substance that is poured into every mold. Ideas of consciousness itself. Desires of life itself. One substance. And so all is this same substance expressing in multiplicity. And so I know that the image and likeness of creation is diversity. Beyond being diverse, it is diversity. It is the thing itself. It is the unformed and the formed. It is the process of imagining. It is the forming of the imagined. It is the expressing of the outcome. I am that in form. I am an animation of this one. an emanation of it. I am literally it in form, experiencing itself as this life I call mine. And what is true of me is true of all creation, of every expression of creation. And so I speak my word, recognizing that it is the word of life itself, speaking itself into being. That everything unlike the truth, the value, the accuracy of this one rises into awareness to be recognized, to be neutralized. And that in that process, the truth of the essence of being, the ground of life itself, lives in the awareness of every expression of it. And I celebrate that the word spoken is the word fulfilled. And so I can let go of every shred of doubt. I can let go of every argument of limitation. I can stand comfortably in the now what? Knowing that only amazing life comes next. That now what is simply inviting more life, more love, more peace. And so I release. Now what? And so it is. Let's take a breath.